Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer Lundy. I'm a marketing manager in the Global Sales and Marketing Department at Livingston International. We've booked 90 minutes with you to provide you with an overview of the USMCA verification process and requirements training for Costco suppliers. The presentation will be followed by a period of questions and answers at the end. Next slide, please. I'd like to start by taking a brief moment to introduce Livingston. For those of you who do not know us, Livingston International is the largest customs broker in Canada and the fifth largest entry filer in the United States. Over 30,000 companies trust Livingston for anything from customs brokerage to their consulting and freight forwarding needs. We continually invest in our people, such as our speakers and partners, and also in our technology solutions to give our clients the edge in today's highly competitive marketplace. For more information, you can visit our website or join our conversations on social media. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel located on the right-hand side of your screen. Just expand out, type your question, and we'll be happy to answer during question and answer period at the end of this presentation with time permitting, of course. Second, if you'd like to follow the presentation slides on screen along with using your phone or computer audio settings, simply download the material now. Please go to your chat box in the GoToWebinar control panel to retrieve the link to today's presentation slides. As well, all participants will receive a follow-up email within 48 hours with a link to download the same materials. Next slide, please. To help better understand the changes and actions you must take to adjust to the current trade and regulatory environment, we have three highly experienced experts from Costco Wholesale and Livingston. First, we welcome our co-host, Costco Wholesale Corporation. Costco is the third largest retailer in the world with over 100 million members and 879 locations and counting within 14 countries. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce one of the many team members from the Trade and Customs Compliance Department at Costco's home office. With us is Jessie Whistler, an Export Compliance Specialist, Level 2, and Certified Customs Specialist. With over a decade of experience in the customs brokerage industry since 2011, Jessie brought his extensive knowledge to Costco in November of 2022. Currently, he is leading the management of the USMCA desk and drawing on his deep expertise in trade compliance. Jessie is joined by Tammy Borghi and Carolyn Peters from Livingston's Global Trade Management Consulting Group. Tammy is a licensed broker and project manager in Livingston's Southfield office. She has worked in the customs industry for over 40 years, specializing in customs brokerage and international trade activities. She's led CBSA and CBP NAFTA audits and is an ISO auditor. During Tammy's 23 years with Livingston, she's managed the Costco NAFTA verification process and USMCA verification. And finally, Carolyn has 32 years of customs brokerage experience and expertise in import operations, compliance, post-entry, broker management, and customer audits. She's a licensed customs broker and a certified customs specialist. I now turn the floor over to Tammy to begin the presentation.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Today's agenda will cover the USMCA verification process with Costco and Livingston. At the end of the training, all suppliers should have the information necessary for seamless USMCA verification. As you understand, we're starting the 2025 peak season, so this is perfect timing for the training. And you can see by the agenda, we're going to talk about the training. Costco is going to help you walk through how to generate the certificate of origin, some frequently asked questions, help you through that process. And then we're going to go into details about our process. We'll talk about your confidentiality with a non-disclosure agreement. We'll talk about submitting the documents and what our solicitation and verification process is. The training will answer the following. What is the program? Why does Costco require this? We're going to understand who conducts it. A big question that we get a lot is who's considered the producer? What are the steps utilized in the one source system? And Jessie has a lot of details to help you there. We'll talk about the end-to-end process to help you understand the full verification program. We're going to talk about the roles of Costco, the supplier, and Livingston. We're going to talk about what documents and information, help you understand what the examples that we have for you. How can we protect your confidentiality and proprietary? We understand that, and we're going to help you support that. And what is the timing requirements on the program, because there are limitations. And with that, I will turn you over to Jesse.
Hello, everyone. This is Jesse. I am the USMCA coordinator here at Costco Wholesale. This slide here is covering the flow chart of the verification process your item is going to be going through. And as you can see, the USMCA process starts actually with the Costco Mexico buying team that you guys should be in contact with regarding your item. Once the buying team establishes that your item will be exported to Mexico, they send me here at Costco a USMCA request/SCA request about the item. And upon receipt of that, that is when I go to OneSource and I will send you your solicitation for the item, most likely going to be for 2025 right now. That is when you will first be notified for the USMCA process. Once you then complete your USMCA certificate in OneSource, which we will cover how to do so in this training, I then receive a notification and review your USMCA certificate, your FOB form, any other certificates that could be required, say if you're not the actual producer of the item. And once I have that in hand and everything is good to go, that is when I send your FOB form and certificates to Livingston's team, and they then will initiate the actual verification process with you based on the information you put on your FOB form. There's a date that you select for them to contact you to start the verification process. After they've collected the documents from you and have worked with you to confirm that your item does qualify or is verified that qualifies for USMCA, that is when they will send out the determination sheet both to me and your team, as well as the Costco Mexico buyers associated with your department, letting us know if it is in fact eligible or not eligible. The Livingston process verifies the validity of USMCA claims by Costco suppliers for their products based on supporting records, and Livingston follows proven USMCA qualification methodologies that will provide the necessary support in the event of a customs USMCA verification request and replicates an audit made by the SAT. It's also known as the Mexico Tax Authority. This process is for Costco's due diligence and is used only as a verification service for USMCA items you have already qualified, meaning suppliers should know that their item qualifies for USMCA. Conclusion/evidence of verification is issued to Costco, like I said, in the form of the determination sheet, and the OneSource and certificate creation related processes within the flowchart is going to be Costco, aka my main focus in this training. Next slide, please. Okay. So supplier regulatory responsibilities. This training only addresses Costco's business requirements for USMCA. The services provided by Livingston are for Costco's due diligence and not to be used by suppliers as the sole verification method for eligibility claims. Any party making a USMCA declaration, including Costco's suppliers, remains subject to the requirement to exercise reasonable care in declaring its goods eligible for USMCA under the agreement and the regulations implementing the agreement. Items that have not completed the verification process will be refused at the border. So if your item is submitted for USMCA verification and it is not done with the process with Livingston and a PO is cut and it tries to be exported, your item will be stopped until the item is shown as verified in OneSource. It is also the supplier's responsibility to know how a product qualifies by the USMCA rules of origin and maintain the records used to demonstrate that information. So basically, as a whole, to summarize, the USMCA origin verification with Costco through Livingston should not be relied on as the sole method of qualification for your USMCA item. You will be asked to fill out a USMCA certificate that asks you questions about the origin and the production and things like that. So just keep that in mind. Next slide, please. So this is going to cover some frequently asked questions regarding OneSource and specifically address the email solicitation that you will see for your item if you have not already seen them come through. So when the items are solicited to the suppliers, there's an email that is created within the OneSource system, and it is sent to the USMCA contacts that you provided for your company. The email title that you see will include the Costco department number. It'll include the Costco item number, the item description, or kind of something that will summarize if there's a multiple, list of items. Could say like various baking goods, various plastic items, stuff like that. It'll also include your supplier account number that Costco has on file and the USMCA year being solicited, also meaning the blanket period. So a lot of the requests right now coming to you should show 2025 at the end and not 2024. So it'll also tell you the type of solicitation that's being sent to you. So it'll tell you if you need an FOB form to be submitted along with your certificate, which there's an example of the subject line on this slide right there. And then the questionnaire request example would be, of course, if your item can utilize a questionnaire form, which will be touched on a little bit later on. Within the solicitation email you received, the body of the email has a bunch of blue links, and there's a screenshot right there. Those blue links are all of the additional forms that you could possibly need to submit with your certificate. There's a link to the underlying producer certificate if you are not the producer of your item. There's a various producer list, which would be used if you have multiple producers of your item, and also a blank FOB form. Or if you get a questionnaire request, it'll have a blank questionnaire form available. And then also a link to all of the resources, which includes these frequently asked questions, step-by-step guides. It will include the new training video from this year's sessions, as well as this slide deck should also be linked there after this last training as well within the next week or so, I assume. So next slide, please. Some more OneSource frequently asked questions. So suppliers do not have a username or password to get into OneSource. You do not need to log in. You do not need to sign up. To access your solicitation, you must be listed as a contact in OneSource. So I have reached out. You'll see emails from the USMCA at Costco.com asking you to confirm your USMCA contacts. That is because your profile in OneSource has a contact list, and that is who it allows access into your supplier portal to complete these solicitation requests. Email links cannot be forwarded to other parties with OneSource, so access is specific to the initial receiver. So again, if you need to access OneSource and you are not listed or you didn't receive the initial email, just email USMCA at Costco.com and let me know, and I can get you added. The link to your solicitation is at the bottom of this request. So click or copy paste the link for access. So that link right there will be located at the bottom of the email solicitation you received, and it'll take you into your supplier portal in OneSource. One quick thing I've noticed coming up is also in these solicitation emails, there is a due date and possibly an expiration date that is listed here. That is only for your access link into OneSource, that due date and expiration date is not involving the actual verification process with Livingston, because at this point that hasn't started yet. So if you see, I didn't get it in this specific screenshot, but if you do see in your email this link expires in 10 days or on August 14th or something like that, that is only for the access link to create your certificate in OneSource. If it expires, just let me know and I just click a button and it gets resent out to you. So no big deal. Next slide, please. This is a screenshot of the supplier dashboard that will open when you click your link in the solicitation email. So what this shows you is what open solicitations you have, what's completed or what's pending. I highlighted just some key information columns there. It shows you the solicitation title, so that should also list some item numbers in the description and the blanket period as well. It tells you the due date. Again, that is pertaining to the expiration of your link, so that is not the USMCA due date. It also tells you the period begin date, which shows you the date of the blanket period for your solicitation. So the blanket period that should be on your USMCA certificate. So if it shows the due date, oh my apologies, if it shows the period begin date as January 1st, 2024, that's telling you it's a solicitation request for the 2024 USMCA blanket period. Obviously, if it said January 1st, 2025, which most should say that now, that is telling you that it's being requested for the 2025 blanket period, so this coming up year. It also tells you the amount of items on your solicitation, and it tells you the percentage that you've completed and the status. So it'll say completed or not completed. And then you just have to go to solicitation, and it'll open up the portal that you need to fill out to create your USMCA certificate. Next slide, please. This screenshot is of the first tab that you have to fill out in OneSource, which is the products tab. This will show all of the items that are linked to the specific solicitation that you opened. You will have to update required item information on the products tab, and this is where you are filling out the information for your product, which will be printed on the USMCA certificate. You'll want to click the checkbox that's in the bottom left-hand corner of this picture to select your item, which is picking it to be placed on the certificate. So if you don't select it, it won't get printed. You want to select the qualifying bubble, which is just to the right of the select box, because that is you declaring that the item does qualify for USMCA and your knowledge of that. That also will then allow it to be printed on the certificate. You need to choose the preference criteria of your item and also the country of origin or where the item is actually manufactured. Something to note is that suppliers cannot change the item number, but there is a section to put your own internal item number. I didn't capture it on the screenshot, but you'll see it in there. You can put reference numbers in there. Item descriptions cannot be changed on the supplier side or the HS number, also known as the Schedule B classification. If you do not agree with the classification or the HS number that is shown, please email usmca@costco.com. If the country of origin that you choose in the system does not match what Costco Wholesale has on file on our side, it will not let you save the change that you put in there. So you will also have to email us, and we will then get with your Mexico buyers and figure out kind of where the mismatch happened, or, we'll figure out what the correct country of origin is, but I will have to update it on my side. And then you will be able to put it in there in OneSource after the fact, but we can work that out through email. So just let me know. Next slide, please. So another part of the Products tab is you want to click Attach Other Documents if you want to upload your FOB form here, or if you want to upload your underlying producer certificate. The Attach Other Documents link would have to be utilized at this part to do so. It doesn't let you go back and attach after you submit the actual certificate. You do not have to upload your FOB form or additional documents here, though. That is not the requirement. Those can be emailed to me if that is easier. The only document that's required to be uploaded in OneSource will be the certificate that gets generated at the end of this process. Before you move on to the Parties tab, you want to make sure that you click Update Selected Products link, which is actually the Save link. There isn't an actual Save button on this. It's the Update Selected Products, and that will make sure everything you entered sticks on this tab. So, next slide, please. So the Parties tab, OneSource will list the Importadora Primex or Costco Mexico information as the importer by default. You can leave that information there, or if you are going to utilize the USMCA certificate you generate here for other shipments, and the importer might not be Costco Mexico, you can put various. However, usually leaving it as the Costco Mexico information is okay and fine, and how most suppliers do go about it. If Costco is not the exporter of your item, which some suppliers will get solicitations that show their item with a dash direct after it, meaning the item will go directly from you to Mexico. You want to be sure to update the exporter information on the certificate to your company information instead of Costco wholesale information, which is what it's defaulted to right now in OneSource. There is also a certificate instructions and step-by-step guide for this process of creating your certificate. It addresses different questions about the Parties tab, how to go about it if you have multiple producers, etc. It'll have all of this information in there, and that can be accessed in the Supplier dashboard. So, next slide, please. So when you are on the Parties tab, you want to click Edit Party Info, and a new window is actually going to pop up in OneSource with additional tabs to fill out the different party information that is on the USMCA certificate. So the tabs are going to be the exporter information, you have importer, producer, and the certifier. So you'll want to put the true producer of your item on the producer field, and the name or the individual that you put in the certifier information must also match the signature that you put on the document, but we'll touch the certifier information a little bit later as well. After you update the information on these different Parties tabs, there's a Save link at the bottom of each one of those boxes, and you want to make sure you click after each address and company you input. Once you are done, you'll close out the Edit Party Information window, and there's another Save link on the Main Parties tab shown on the right there with another Save arrow, and you'll want to make sure you click the Save before proceeding, and also pick your certifier type. This is often missed because it's a tiny drop-down menu, but it checks the box at the bottom of the certificate stating who is signing it. So most of the times you are going to be the exporter if you don't produce the item, or if you do produce the item, you can pick producer as well. And then again, save before proceeding. Next slide, please. So when completing the certifier tab, you want to ask yourself some questions. Who should answer the phone when customs calls about the item? The certificate should be signed by a person listed as the certifier in the Parties tab, so box number 1. The certifier who signs the certificate should also understand how the item qualifies for USMCA. Using a digital signature or hand-signed is both acceptable. You want to make sure that it's someone who holds a title, usually like the company officer, QA manager, customs compliance director, basically anyone who knows detailed knowledge about the production and manufacturing of the item, the ingredients, etc. When completing the certifier tab, it's just important to make sure that the person is going to be the expert on the item, again, because if an audit is to occur, we look and the Mexico SAT looks at who signed your certificate, and that's going to be who they want to reach out to or who they initiate the audit with. So the next slide is going to go over the signature tab. So next slide, please. So on the signature tab, all fields must be completed. You would just repeat the certifier company details and list NA for a fax number. If you're uploading the signed version on a later date, you may need to update the date of upload and save to get the upload prompt on the next tab. And digital signatures are accepted. So this again should show the same person that you put as the individual in the certifier box in the Parties tab, and you want to make sure that you do save before proceeding as well. So next slide, please. So this goes over the Generate Documents tab, which is tab number 4. This is very important. There's a lot of issues that come up on this tab, and I just really would pay attention to this one, if not anything else, because it's what's going to allow you to upload your document in one source, and there's some tricky steps to verify the document here. So we're going to go over that. When all of the steps have been completed successfully in the previous tabs that you've gone through, the USMCA generation link will appear as a blue hyperlink on tab number 4. It's boxed right there on the screenshot. If it is grayed out when you get to tab number 4, double check that you selected your product on the Products tab, that you mark it as qualifying, and the signature date is not earlier than the date you're trying to upload it. Attachments will be listed in the previously submitted document box to the right, as you can see. So in this example, a questionnaire was uploaded as an additional document. This is where your FOB would be as well if you did that step on the Products tab. The next few slides will cover the steps required to upload your USMCA certificate back into OneSource. It has to be split out, and I think it's a 7 to 10 step process here, but they're small steps and they're all on tab number 4. So next slide, please, and this will show you how to do this. So the following steps provided for tab 4, which is where you go to create and upload the USMCA certificate, must be completed anytime you are asked to even correct your certificate in OneSource. If your certificate is rejected for any reason out of OneSource, these steps will have to be followed each and every time to regenerate and re-upload the document successfully. Your underlying producer certificate generation is not supported in OneSource though, and there's a template that I can provide for that. So don't get the underlying producer certificate confused with your USMCA certificate in OneSource. If the USMCA certificate is not uploaded or submitted in OneSource on tab number 4, I will not be notified that your certificate is in there, and you will not have any communication because no one will know that you have a certificate in there. So it is very important to upload it because that's how I get an email letting me know that there's something to look at. So the supplier dashboard will show either a full or partial completion percentage rate. So if you get through all of the tabs and you go to your supplier dashboard but you haven't submitted your certificate yet, or you think you did but it shows partial for the completion percentage or amount on your dashboard, that means you didn't upload the certificate successfully. If you upload your certificate successfully in tab number 4, that is the only way that your solicitation on your supplier dashboard will move to the completed status. So that's another way to, check if this was uploaded successfully or not. Next slide, please. So when you are on tab number 4, assuming that you filled out all of the other tabs successfully and you have your blue USMCA link, you first want to click the Select All checkbox, which is next to the number 1 on the bottom screenshot. Then, number 2 is you want to click the blue USMCA link, which is what generates your certificate. When you click the blue link, it should open up your certificate, and that's where you will download the copy to sign. Next slide, please. So, you want to download the certificate that it provided to you, which is step number 3. And then number 4 is, after you sign it, to upload the document again, you want to click the Select File box. That is now on the screen. After you select your signed document from your desktop or wherever you saved it on your computer, you then want to click the checkbox that is asking you to confirm the certificate is signed. I think a lot of people stop here because there is a grayed out link that doesn't turn blue until you click that checkbox. But the blue link that says submit documents is what will actually submit the document into OneSource. If you do not click that blue link, it will not be done, and I will not know anything, and then it will sit. So this is very important. This obviously will be available in the slides, and you can also email me at USMCA at Costco.com, and I have these steps ready to send to anyone that gets hung up on this. So please let me know. Next slide, please. So the underlying producer certificate is used if you are not the producer of the item. If you are the supplier to Costco, like it says, but does not produce it, you have to obtain an underlying producer certificate from the producer. We have a template that can be used if needed, but the format of the certificate is as follows. So the certifier on this producer certificate would be the producer, because they are certifying that they also know the information about the item and its origin verification information. The producer on the producer certificate should also be the producer information. The exporter should actually be your information, so Costco's supplier information. This is on the underlying producer certificate because this certificate is used as backup documentation, just an internal backup documentation to show the relationship between the producer, Costco's supplier, and then Costco. It is not used for any shipments. It's not used for anything with the actual movement, but if an audit is conducted by the Mexico Tax Authority, that is what the backup documentation they're looking for if there's an additional producer involved and the supplier is not the producer. So the importer information on the underlying producer certificate can either show various, again, if you're going to utilize it for any other situation with USMCA, or it is also defaulted as the Importadora Premix or Costco Mexico information on the template. The certifier checkbox should show producer, and the signature on the certificate should also be the producer, because again, they are using this to certify that they are knowledgeable and the information of the item that you submitted is also accurate. If the item is produced by more than one producer, you'll need to obtain an underlying producer certificate from each of them, and also this is when we utilize the various producer lists, which I have a template for as well, and is also available on the supplier dashboard, which is just a document and you list the producers the address information that would go on the certificate usually. And there's even a section where we ask to specify which items each producer is involved in. So, next slide, please. So, Dropbox contains supplier resources, forms, and templates. So we utilize Dropbox just to hold any of the supplier guides, step-by-step forms, any of the blank documents. The links will take you to Dropbox. You should not upload any documents of yours or certificates or anything to Dropbox. The USMCA certificate should only be uploaded to one source. Dropbox is visible to all of the suppliers with viewer level access, so everyone can see the resources and download documents if they need to. And the USMCA dashboard is always available in Costco USMCA's email signature, along with the video tutorial on how to create the USMCA certificate in one source, which I think that actually is just being replaced with the annual supplier training video and the slide deck. So this new recording from these training sessions and this new slide deck will be linked on the dashboard as well in my email signature, most likely probably by the end of this week or next week, whenever we solidify that information. So next, Livingston is going to discuss their role within the USMCA verification process. As always, if there's any questions about the one source USMCA certificate process or FOB forms, please don't hesitate to reach out to usmca@costco.com. Livingston is going to cover what they are going to cover, and then questions can also be done at the end as well. So thank you, and Tammy, I believe you are next.
Thank you, Jesse. All right, so let's start talking about Livingston's role. First thing I want to talk about is producer. The USMCA defines producer very simply as the person who engages in the production of a good. Who's the true manufacturer? Jesse's been talking over and over again about representing the producer on the certificate. Production is defined, you can see all these things: growing, cultivating, raising, hunting, manufacturing, processing, or assembling a good, or agriculture. Processing, however, is not defined in the USMCA Rules of Origin. There have been decisions by customs authorities and rulings, or in a rare case, a court has decided what processing is. And that's important to understand in USMCA for production. So let's first talk about the actual production location. USMCA brought into a rule different than NAFTA that says the actual production site must be listed in the producer section of the certificate. Historically, companies put their headquarters. Unfortunately, that is no longer valid. So we may come back to you at some point and say your raw materials show us that you received the raw ingredients at 123 Main Street, but your certificate shows 456 2nd Street. And you tell me 2nd Street's my headquarters. Unfortunately, your certificate will be invalid, incorrect. We will ask Jesse to reject it, and you'll start all over again within the one portal system to get a corrected certificate. If production does occur in multiple locations, and Jesse touched on this too, make sure that we're talking about various. Various is allowed. I will tell you that we will require one set of documents. For example, if you produce the same item in 3 of your manufacturing plants, I'm going to need all the documents for just one of them. They'll all be listed on the certificates, but I'm going to need the underlying documents. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. Just going to one of your manufacturing facilities. So again, all the required data elements for the producer field must be met. And Costco again talked about it. They do have templates if needed. The key takeaway from here is actual production location. Some of the decisions that we have seen for agricultural. If the product does not meet processing definitions, then we would need a complete list of growers. We may ask for additional documents from your growers, or if there is 100 growers, and we see this a lot in co-ops, we'll probably ask for specific documentation, maybe from one or two. Certain fruits require the grower location regardless of any operations undertaken elsewhere. The apricots, peaches, and pears, unfortunately, are called out in the USMCA. What that doesn't include, though, is when the fruits are fully produced into another food item, such as a pie or a pastry. This is just raw agriculture. For wine, producer location is the location of fermentation. Blending is not considered the site of production. We're giving you some examples here of what has been considered processing versus not processing in some of the agricultural items. For nuts, roasting when there is seasoning added or is considered processing. Shelling and pasteurizing, considered processing under the USMCA. Not considered as merely roasting without seasoning or just sorting or packaging it. Cheese, slicing is processing, packaging is not. Again, wine, fermentation is, bottling is not. Seafood, filleting or redding is considered. Just merely freezing it or packaging it is not considered processing. And other agricultural products is all dependent on the product and the rule of origin, but definitely receiving, sorting, packaging is not considered to be production or processing under the USMCA. So we're going to talk about solicitation, but I want to take just a quick second to show you this swim lane flowchart. Again, you could start seeing all of the roles that we all play in a verification for Costco. Jesse's talked about his process where it's determined that a product is destined for Mexico, and they start their process of asking you, the supplier, for the USMCA certificate and the FOB. You as a supplier, and Jesse's mentioned it, now that I've mentioned it over and over again, must qualify your own item. You need to understand that just signing that cert it's against the regulations. Understand how you qualified it. We're going to, if the supplier is not the producer, you have an obligation to contact the true producer and ask them to conduct the qualification on their product. Do they know the rules of origin under USMCA? Are they gathering all the documents? Once all of the certificates are issued, it does go back to Jesse's team. Jesse reviews your certificate and FOB, looks at it for accuracy, then Livingston process starts. We will be notified that there's a certificate of origin and an FOB ready to start. We'll receive copies of those. And then we solicit you, the supplier, for documents, and we do provide you a detailed listing of them. If you do not already have one on file, you may contact us with a concern for confidentiality and proprietary of your information. We will issue an NDA. We have a template that our Livingston legal and the Costco legal team have agreed upon. Certainly, we would suggest you use it. It does protect you. But also, you're free to have your legal team look at it. If they have some red lines they want to send back to us, understand that we will definitely consider those too. Once we solicit you, you're going to assemble all the documents, either from yourself or you've already asked them from your producer, and you're going to submit them to Livingston. We're going to talk about this and what the timelines are on that. Then we have a responsibility to review all those. We need to notify you if they've been rejected or if they're incomplete. Hopefully, they're not incomplete. We'll then complete our determination sheet, and we're going to submit it back to both Costco and yourself. And we're going to say, yes, we verified this product is USMCA eligible. And then Costco can take that, and that's when they allow things to be shipped to the border to go into Mexico. Or it could say it's not eligible. So the Livingston verification process, as I mentioned, doesn't start until the production document availability. On your FOB, there is a space for it that says specifically what day your documents will be available. We're getting some now for the 2025 that they're completing their certificate and they're signing the FOB and they're getting it back to Jesse. But they're saying our 2025 documents won't be ready until October 1st. Makes sense to me. But put October 1st, and I'm not going to solicit you until that date. Jesse talked about that a second ago, where we had we were talking internally, where our supplier wasn't sure what date to put there, and the answer is, when will you have the documents ready? They're very time sensitive. From the first solicitation that we sent you, you have 30 days to get everything to us. There's generally no exceptions to that. If you need to change your date availability or date of production, please notify Costco and Livingston before we get too far into the solicitation process. Failure to complete the request timely will result in, we will close it as not eligible for insufficient documents and bill it at the full rate. And then you have to start all over again. You'd have to sign a new FOB. We'd have to reopen the request, and we'll go through the process again, and there will be a separate charge. And that's not advantageous to anybody. Okay, so the FTA verification authorization form. This is the document we were talking about. This is that FOB, and you can see this is the form that Costco sends along to Livingston. We're looking at those two really important dates: the start date of item production and the date the documents will be ready. Make sure those dates are accurate. Don't list the start date after the ship date. You need to confirm with your buying team, but please be conservative in when your documents are going to be available. We see it more often than we hope to, is that they'll put an immediate date. And then when we send the solicitation, we'll get a response back, well, we're not ready. Can you please, extend this? And there often will be a time that we'll say, no, you put that date there. As we're coming into this last quarter, into the peak season for 2025, it's first in, first out. We're working these as quickly as we possible because we know you need to get into the depot before the end of the year, but you've got to put those dates correctly. So for the 2025 season, again, there'll be two actions that will continue to be enforced. The 30-day timeline will be strictly imposed. Lack of your complete documents does not constitute a reason to suspend it. Again, the data production document availability was set by you as the supplier, not Costco, not Livingston. The documents must be organized and labeled. This is so important because in order to support any kind of SAT audit or request, Livingston has been taking on the responsibility of unbundling that. We take a PDF and we label them and we organize the records. For example, we'll put all purchase orders together. We'll put all commercial invoice together, or we'll put it together by your ingredient. We've received PDFs with 150 pages in one document. We will reject that now, and we'll send it back to you, and we'll explain why we're rejecting the documents. The 30-day timeline is not stopping. So it's important that when you're organizing your documents to send to us, that they are labeled and organized. So let's talk about the verification process. Let's talk first about responsibilities. So, of course, our objective is to provide Costco a timely, complete verification to support their Mexico claims. So you as a supplier, your responsibilities: conduct the qualification before signing that USMCA certificate. Engage a third-party subject matter expert if it's necessary, if you're not sure how to qualify your products. Provide an accurate certificate. Again, talking about that producer's address. Report the most accurate document ready date on the FOB. Be conservative if you had to. Prepare for the solicitation by gathering documents. Notify Livingston in response of anomalies to current guidelines. I mean, if you're seeing a challenge, contact us. We'd be glad to answer questions proactively, even before you get solicitation. And we're starting to get some of those questions this year already. Hey, Livingston, it's that time of year again. I have this question. Again, organize and label your documents. Try to get them all to us in your first response to Livingston. We don't want to have to go back time after time and say, okay, you provided all the documents for 4 of your 5 ingredients. What happened to ingredient 5? And then you have to gather them all again and send them back to us. Your accounts payable records can be provided after the verification process. We understand that your terms of payment with your suppliers may be net 60, maybe net 90. When you tell us your expected payment date, we put that on record. We're expecting you to send us those documents later, but we will also reach out to you as those dates come up and ask you then to confirm and please send those payable records. So then Livingston's responsibilities. We also have the same objective. We need to provide clear instructions of what you as the supplier needs to understand the verification process. We need to include definitions and examples of the documents being requested. We understand that one company's bill of lading is not the same as another company's bills of lading. We are required to solicit you 3 times within 15 days to allow the supplier time to respond within the 30-day timeline. Just so you understand, when we send out that first solicitation 2 and 3 are automatic as long as your item remains open, meaning that we did not receive all the documents from you, and you may have sent me everything again. We sent you an email said, okay, this is missing. You sent it to me, and you may get an automatic second solicitation, and your concern is, well, wait a minute. You asked me for this. I sent it. Absolutely. And we acknowledge we received that, but you will receive the second and third until the item is closed. We have an obligation to review your submitted documents timely. And that means we need to look at them within 48 hours. We also are really responsible to reject your document submission if it's not organized. We're not going to just spend, 10 hours unbundling your documents. That's quite frankly, that's a waste of everyone's time and of your 30 days. You could be breaking this up very simply. And like I said, these go into a queue. First in, first out. The next guy in the queue may have his documents all in order. And in all fairness, we need to work his next. We need to be available to communicate with you as the supplier on questions regarding this verification process. Not the qualification process, the verification process. You can email us at any time. You can ask us, can we jump on a call? Can you help me understand this? I'm a little confused. This is my first time doing this. Absolutely, we would be glad to do that for you. We need to complete the verification and documents if it's eligible or not eligible on a termination status sheet. That's our responsibility. So a little bit more about solicitation. So upon receipt of the email solicitation from Livingston, the documents should be submitted as soon as possible, preferably within that first 5 days. Again, remember, we don't start until you tell us the documents are ready, FOB date. They should be scanned and submitted to our mailbox. If you need to use a Google Box or a Dropbox, let us know. Make sure that you've given us the password for it, and we can certainly pull them down from there. We also see often the email file is just too large. You can send them in multiple emails. Just label the emails. Email 1 of 10, 2 of 10, so that we ensure that we receive them all. Again, organize the documents and label them by the document category. Is this company information? Is this raw materials? Is this production records? The raw material documents are the most common challenges with organizing and labeling. An option is to PDF all purchase orders together, maybe the commercial invoices together. Or again, you can do it by ingredient. Again, we talked about unorganized and unlabeled documents will be rejected and will result in a delay. Please ensure all documents requested are included in your submission. If you're not understanding what the documents mean, again, send us a note. Ask us to get on a phone call. So the document categories I mentioned a minute ago are these: company information, product information, raw materials information, and the production records. We have 2 tables with detailed definitions to assist with document requirements, and we're going to go through those. We're going to include a list of specialized items that require additional documents under USMCA. Again, for example, wine, dairy. I want to caution, the listing that we're sending should not be assumed to be inclusive SAT and Customs has the authority to require any additional documentation they want. We are asking for the most common and the most often asked documents that use reasonable care to determine the item is verified. So here is, let's start talking about these in a little more detail. This is the company information category. We're going to say we need a company brochure and or profile. This is just general information, again, to show the producer site. We want to prove that where you're saying the product's made is being made. We will use a sales product list. We often go to, tell us if you have a website. We'll go out there and pull the link down, and we'll look at your website. We'll do that often. The factory layout. Again, I don't need to know an exact location of every single machine. Often the HACCP floor plan is provided to us. Again, it's proving it's actually a production site and not just a packaging site. We talked about packaging not being production. The list of machines. Often the suppliers are concerned because that can be proprietary. Just provide us a generic list. If you're providing a baked good, we're expecting to see ovens, maybe some blenders, maybe some sort of quality, product. Agricultural. We see often magnets, the magnet machine, making sure everything's clean, the sorting machines. Just provide us that listing. Now, the thing about company information is, if it remains the same year over year, you may state that to us. When you respond back to the solicitation, please state, company information remains the same, and we won't require it. We will copy it over from our data files from the year before and put it into this year's file. The product information, the bill of material, and this is one of the biggest challenges we see, quite honestly. Bills of material vary from company to company, but I need a list of raw materials or ingredients that go into making the finished product. Don't provide the packaging or labeling. It isn't necessary. Each ingredient or raw material must include the country of origin, must include the Harmonized Tariff Schedule, the HTS. Even if the ingredients from the U.S., I need to still know that. Where a rule of origin, because remember, you qualified this, required a regional value of content rule of origin, you must include the unit price for each ingredient. It's referred to as a cost of bill of material. Again, if you're qualifying your product, you know that rule of origin, you know what we need. The USMCA Certificate of Origin. This is not the one that you've provided, Jesse. This is when you have an ingredient on your bill of material that did not meet the USMCA rule of origin tariff shift. And you know that you need to go out to your supplier and obtain their USMCA Certificate of Origin or some sort of supplier affirmation. We would expect you to send that to us. Quite often, we don't see that. We have to go back and ask for it. The photo or a drawing, this is pretty wide open. It's not mandatory, but it does support, again, the product. It could be the artwork that you agreed upon with Costco. I've had folks just take a picture of the product and just upload it. Just anything so that we could see the product name, what it looks like, and again, match it to the product that we're verifying. Now, this is the most challenging area for everyone, and the most critical, and the one that delays the most. And quite frankly, we understand why this is hard for you to gather this, because we're asking for things like purchase orders, invoices, bills of lading, remittance. This might be 3 and 4 different departments within your organization. We understand that. We start with the bill of material, and we start working our way down. So for each component or ingredient, we look for the purchase order. It is not mandatory, but it does help. When it's mandatory is if you remit to your supplier and you list the purchase order number, I need to tie it out to a copy of the purchase order. Invoices, again, from your suppliers of the raw materials. We need it for each raw input listed on the bill of material. Now, I will say that we have some suppliers that may have 20 or 30 raw materials or ingredients. Give us a call. We generally can work together to pick the top 7 or 8. We recognize that pulling 20 or 30 is not going to be advantageous for everybody. We will do that based on the understanding that you know that if customs does ask for all 30, you need to be ready to provide it. The invoices should again show that it's going to the producer site. It's going to show an invoice number. It often shows the PO number. It shows where the supplier and who the supplier is. The bill of lading again is showing those raw materials being moved to the production site. A couple of things I want to talk about there. You can redact cost and price and quantities. We're okay with that, even with an NDA. I just have to be able to see the description of the ingredient. I need to be able to see a supplier, city, and state or province. That can't be redacted, but if you need to redact your supplier name and street address, okay. Also, to caution you, and we see this often, your raw materials are being sent to a warehouse or cold storage. That's typical. But what I need to know is, and see, is some kind of transfer or delivery documents to your production site. This is where we see a lot of variances. We will often even see an SAP screenshot that shows that ingredient being moved from warehouse 1 to plant site 2. As long as you tell me what warehouse 1 address is and plant site 2 address is, we're good. Again, we can be flexible in these. Just need to show that they've been moved to the actual production site. And again, your payable or remittance to your supplier. Again, remember, these are what the customs authorities would be looking for. It must tie out to the commercial invoice or somehow be tied that I can directly see that the purchase is being paid for. It can be your proof of payment. I've had check copies given to us. Often we see accounting information coming out of your system, an SAP system or any other system that you have. But again, this is where we have the most delays. This is where we have the most challenges because this is difficult. This is why we caution, when you sign that certificate of origin and send it to Costco, start your document gathering then. You're qualifying your product, start gathering all of your documents. That way, when you tell Livingston, documents will be ready such and such a day, this is what I'm talking about. You should be able to just have them ready to send to me. And we do have suppliers that do that. And lastly, the production records. Again, we need to show that production was actually conducted. We've seen batch sheets, we've seen lot sheets, work orders. What we can't have are like packaging records or quality records, unless the quality record also is tied into a batch order sheet. Again, packaging and quality control are not sufficient to prove production. Here's the other thing that is the most common gap we see. Please make sure the Costco item number is on the production records to tie it out. It can be handwritten. You can, with a PDF document, drop it in the text box. We recognize that many of your production systems don't have the Costco item number, but have your internal item number. That's understandable. Just get the Costco item number on that production record, or we're going to come back and ask you to please add that in there. And it just, again, delays. So we touched on the non-disclosure agreement a minute ago. We so understand and appreciate the confidentiality of the information. You're entrusting us with some very important information. Your sourcing, your formulas, trade secrets, all of that's in there. The email solicitation from Costco has the buyer on copy. When we solicit you, the buyer's on there. Please remove the Costco address, the Costco buyer, and any Costco email address when you respond to us, or you break your own confidentiality because you're sending me those documents. To support this even further, like I said, we do have an NDA in place. This year we went through and looked at all NDAs we had on file. We've contacted a lot of you and said, looks like your NDA is old. We attached a new one and said, could you please consider signing this? And we will put it in our records. We've been very successful. A lot of you have completed those and sent them back to us. and we have them on record now for the 2025 USMCA period. If you did not have one, or if you want one, please contact us at the email address I just showed you a moment ago, and we would be glad to get it out to you. And again, like I said, you are welcome to have your legal team take a look at it, and we will send it to our legal team to talk about some of those red lines. If there's no red lines, we're going to immediately countersign it and return it to you. If they are red lines, it usually takes a minimum of 2 weeks for our legal team to get it into their queue for them to review and comment or accept them. We note in our database, this is an NDA file, yes, and we keep a signed copy of an NDA in your supplier master file. Every supplier has a master file. Every item we do for you every year is loaded in that master file. It remains in force until the 5th anniversary of the last date upon which the confidential information was disclosed to Livingston. When we just did this big review of them all, we identified that some hadn't been solicited since 2019. So we didn't even ask for a new one for those. So again, if you need one, if you did not respond to our request for a new one this year, please let us know. Okay, so we're going to start talking now about the actual verification and the steps we take. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Carolyn.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, so the verification process is to be completed within 30 days from the date the first solicitation email is sent. A total of 3 solicitations will be sent. The second and third are automated and may be sent even if the documentation has been sent and going through the review process. Metrics are provided to Costco daily during the annual recertification process that provides the status of solicitation and verifications. The Costco buyers are on copy of the daily metrics. Few issues will suspend the 30 days. Rejected or incomplete documents will not suspend that 30-day period. Requesting an NDA will extend that time. If there is a change to the original production date included on the FOV, Costco needs to be made aware, and this will suspend the 30 days. We recommend that all documents are gathered before the FOV date to ensure that the 30 days are met. It is important for Costco suppliers to review carefully what will suspend the 30-day time allowance and what will not. This becomes especially critical during peak solicitation period. The turnaround time depends on volume of the open items to verify. Multiple emails are much more desirable than one email with a large continuous PDF file. Livingston typically reviews documentation received within 24 to 48 hours and will respond with either an email of questions or requesting additional documentation or with the eligibility determination sheet. Completeness, organization of documents, and the presentation will all support a quicker review. Be sure to label all documents according to their type. For example, company information, production records, etc. Do not send one large PDF containing all of the documents. For the raw material documents, the best case is to combine the PO, commercial invoice, bill of lading, and proof of payment for each unique material listed on the bill of material into one PDF and name the document, the item from the BOM it coincides with. Next slide. Submit the requested documents by replying to the original solicitation email so that Livingston can easily identify the request. If the documents are large, send multiple emails and just number the emails 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. The solicitation email will include the Costco buyer, so please be sure to remove the Costco buyer when you email the documents. The verification process, it's a two-step process at Livingston to ensure compliance. This is why you may get follow-up emails for additional clarification or documentation based on the senior consultant's review. If the product is deemed not eligible for a reason other than insufficient documents, Livingston will review the item with the supplier to ensure all documents were correctly submitted. Once the verification is complete, a determination sheet including all rationale for the determination and indication of the records supplied will be provided. Next slide, please. This is an example of what the determination sheet looks like. Next slide, please. So we're going to look at the document requirements section by section. Here we have the company documentation as outlined in these blue bullet points. By company, we mean producer. If the company information has not changed from the previous year, just let us know by email and we can use the documents provided last year. As noted earlier in this presentation, we must confirm that the producer's name and address on the USMCA origin certificate matches company documentation provided here. Next slide, please. The critical document and product information is the bill of material, or the BOM. We review the BOM to make sure that the applicable rule of origin is met. The bill of material must include the HTS and country of origin for all items with the exception of packaging material, unless otherwise instructed by Livingston or Costco. Remember, it is up to the supplier or a third party hired by the supplier to qualify the item for USMCA. Livingston confirms that the HTS code shift, de minimis, or in a few cases, the regional value content has been applied correctly. If underlying certificates are required for non-shifting HTS codes, we will review those to make sure they are facially valid. Again, to reemphasize, we do not confirm whether the HTS code at the 6-digit level for the materials are accurate or not, but whether they are facially plausible. Drawings or photos are used to ensure that the information on the label, such as country, manufacturer, producer, etc., match up with information provided on the documents. Next slide, please. For those suppliers that are experienced in issuing USMCA certificates in other circumstances, the request for raw material documents may seem to be out of the ordinary. But the Mexican customs authorities have requested such documents in the past during audits to confirm that the destination for the raw materials match the name and address of the producer on the USMCA certificate that the producer paid for the raw materials. Next slide, please. Here we have an example of what we review and check for in the raw material documentation. The documents must tie to each other either by a PO or invoice number. The bill of lading must show delivered to the producer location shown on the USMCA certificate of origin. If a bill of lading is not used, a document or ERP inventory report showing the items were delivered to the production location can be used. The proof of payment is required to be tied to the shipment by the PO or invoice number, and ERP screenshot is acceptable. If the proof of payment is not available, the verification can be tentatively approved when a date of payable is provided to Livingston. Keep in mind, you will be required to send the proof of payment once it's made. Next slide, please. Production documents must tie to the Costco item, either from the records themselves or manually placed on the documentation. The production documents must also be recent, and ERP screenshots are acceptable. However, inventory or storage records are not adequate. Again, the address on the production record, if it's shown, must match what is on the other documentations, which match the USMCA Certificate of Origin. Next slide, please. Some important reminders. If you are not the producer, the raw material information is required from the actual producer. This can be sent to Livingston separately and under NDA from your co-manufacturer or co-packager. Some information we can allow to be redacted, for example, raw material costing or supplier name. But please keep in mind that the supplier address and raw material description must be visible. We have to be able to tie it to that BOM and showing where it's coming from. The raw material delivery address must match the producer address on the USMCA Certificate of Origin, with exceptions for cold storage or warehousing. Ensure raw material documents are provided for each component ingredient on the BOM except for packaging and are within 3 months of document submission, some exceptions allowed. If you have an item that you still have in stock that you purchased 6 months ago, we would just require an email stating that that was the last delivery of that item that you received. Underlying USMCA COO will be required where components is produced in a USMCA country but does not meet required tariff shift under the USMCA rule of origin. Next slide, please. So every year after the peak season, Livingston conducts an analysis, a supplier analysis, looking at least one item per supplier, so that we can see where everyone is falling into. We grade them as best, average, or opportunity for improvement. Looking for best, ideally, a best case scenario is there will be 3 or less follow-up emails, meaning that once you provide the documentation, the auditor will only have to go back to you asking for clarification or additional documents less than 3 times. Closed within the 30 days that is allowed, and the documents are organized. For an average, it's 4 to 6 follow-up emails, closed within 35 days, and the documents are organized or semi-organized. And there are some cases where there is opportunity for improvement. If we have to email more than 6 follow-up emails, or if the item is open for more than 35 days, that's going to get a grade of opportunity for improvement. Next slide, please. So the results for 2023 were really positive overall. We conducted the annual review, and 55.72% of all suppliers received a best grade. 21.76% received an average, and only 22.52% had an opportunity for improvement. So how do we achieve best? Well, 1, attending this training is a good first step. Follow the instructions on the solicitation letters. Work directly with Livingston on your questions. If you have new team members who are taking on this role, contact us. We'd be happy to get on a call and walk through the process with them. Next slide, please. Okay, so I now turn it over to Jennifer to explain how the question period will work.
Thank you, Carolyn. We now take a few minutes to answer some of the audience's questions, with time permitting. If we're unable to answer your specific question today, you may email your question to Costco Supplier Training at livingstonintl.com, and we'll forward them to our presenters or to a Costco Livingston team member for their response. From I mentioned earlier in the webcast, within 48 hours, you will receive an email with a link to access a downloadable version of this PowerPoint presentation. Please watch for this email. You can also turn to your chat in the GoToWebinar control panel on your screen And you can download a copy of the presentation slides there before we close out today's presentation. Carolyn, I'm going to turn it back to you, and you can, when you're ready, you can begin reading questions to Jesse, Tammy, and yourself.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. So we have a question here. Jesse, this one's for you. When you were talking about OneSource, the question is, will we get this email request, or do we have to reach out for the request?
No, you don't have to reach out for the request to be sent. It'll actually be sent to you once your Costco Mexico buyers send me a request. And actually, most suppliers right now should already have their 2025 USMCA solicitation request. So at this point, if you don't see it, yes, you might want to reach out. But in general, to initiate it, no, you do not have to reach out.
Right, and Jesse, this question I think is also for you. Please clarify the signature date. They've had trouble uploading the COO with a past date. Is it okay to upload the COO with future dates, or do I need to upload on the exact date that the COO shows?
So if the signature date is selected in OneSource is behind when you're trying to upload it, so a past date, it won't let you. So you either need to have the signature date be the same date that you're actually going to upload the signed document, or it can be a future date, and it'll let you generate it. But basically, they're not wanting, OneSource is just trying to avoid getting like past dated signatures uploaded in the system, so that they match.
Thank you. And we have one more question here. Which one is considered solicitation email? Is that the initial email requesting COO, or the following email after COO is submitted and the one requesting the verification? They want to make sure when the first day of the 30 days begin.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
answer that one, Carolyn.
Oh, either of those. Okay, Tammy, you can go.
I'll take that one real quick. Yeah, I'll take that one real quick. The 30-day period, solicitation is used twice. You're right. Jesse talks about soliciting where he's starting to request the USMCA certificate and the FOB. The Livingston process solicitation, that's when your 30 days starts. Not when Jesse's process is initiated, but when you receive that first email from Livingston, attaching your certificate, attaching your FOB form, and it actually has the language that say this is the Livingston verification process. That's when your clock starts.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, so are we to give the most recently manufactured lot of material in the supporting documents or raw materials?
It's best if you can. You can provide that's a little older. If you produce this product monthly, you want to give me 2 months ago, that's fine. We find that more advantageous for the suppliers because they're more likely to have all of the raw material documents handy. It isn't necessary to have the most recent production records. Again, we have folks that only produce this twice a year. And we'll just look for the most current one and a note from you saying, by the way, the last production run of this was 8 months ago, and those are the records we're providing. Just tell us up front, or else we're going to go back and say, is this the most current? So, yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Mm-hmm. What documents are needed to show receipt of raw materials? Is just a bill of lading okay?
Absolutely, as long as you're showing delivery to the production site. We also have had folks that use a receiving record as their commercial invoice or a packing list. They'll actually send us a packing list and there's a receiving stamp on it. Your warehouse stamps it, says received, has the date, somebody signs it. We can use that as long as it has the delivery address of the production site, and tell us you're using that as the bill of lading. We can be flexible enough for that. Again, remember the objective of a bill of lading is to show the raw materials went to the production address.
Thank you, Tammy. If a product is missing from our 2025 request, how do we get that corrected?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
If a product is missing from our 2025 request, how do we get that corrected?
It would kind of depend what that means. So if an item is missing from your request, meaning like you don't see an item being solicited for USMCA that you expect to be exported, that would then have to be brought up either with me, which is the USMCA at Costco.com, and or your Costco Mexico buyers as well. Because if an item hasn't been solicited to you yet and you think it should be because it's going to export, it means that either I haven't received the request to then send the suppliers the request, or maybe there's something else going on, maybe like with the Mexico buyers right now or something that's going on. I'm not too sure. However, if it's that you don't see an item on the certificate that you see in one source when you were filling out your information, that's different, and that would mean you accidentally didn't select the item. So kind of depends on what that means. If there's needing to be any further clarification, they can email the USMCA at Costco.com.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. How many production lots are we to send supporting information for?
One. If one production lot is indicative of all your production, one is fine.
Okay. So it says our production won't start until at least December 2024. Can I put the ready date for proof of documents on the FOV form by the end of January 2025?
The challenge you will have there has to do with the shipment to the border and what day the depot closes that Costco informs you of. If you have a previous production, we can accept that. There are also instances, if you make a generic product and you sell that exact product to another customer, we can make an exception and use the production records for that customer. Just redact who your customer is and tell us that this is a generic product. We make production for various people. Here is a generic. We have not produced the Costco brand yet. I don't expect you until January. So reach out to us, talk to us. But what the bottom line is we can't verify this for the 2025 period by the middle of December if there's no production records available. It would have to wait until January, but then that does delay your delivery to Costco Mexico.
Okay, so we are down to just the last couple of minutes. I will ask one more question. Can you go over again how we can know when to anticipate when the solicitations will arrive? You said we can specify in the FOV, but how do we prevent choosing batches, lots to provide documents for that are too far back due to the solicitation arriving later than expected? Can we specify a small window for reviewing solicitations so we know exactly when they will come?
So again, our solicitation process starts only when you've put an FOV date of docs availability. So if you're writing on the FOV form that your most current lot being produced was a month ago, you can tell us, okay, start gathering your documents for that last lot production. I might not be completely understanding the question. Again, we're going to go by your FOV date of doc availability. If we certainly don't want to solicit you, and we won't solicit you until you tell us what date. If you don't believe you're going to be ready, put a date further out. But again, I should caution, and this is something you need to work with Costco on, you could miss your date of export to Mexico if it's delayed farther than the middle of December. So if you want me to clarify that further, please feel free to send us an email to the Costco.verification@livingstonintl.com email, and we can certainly have a discussion about it further to help you understand what you should put on your FOB date.
Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
I just want to follow up just one more on the last question about the production won't start until at least December 2024. The person has replied that yes, it would be the same product, but we have a different item number for a different customer. Can you still accept that?
Generally, yes. If it's going to be the exact same ingredients, the exact same bill of materials, the exact same raw materials, generally we can just reach out to us proactively and say, this is what's going to happen on this. I'm going to have to use my generic production records. And then we would just ask that when you do the first run of the Costco production, send us a copy of that production record. We'll load it into the file for historical purposes.
Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
That is all of the questions we have.
Great. Thank you so much. These are great questions that came in, and thank you to all the presenters. So for more valuable information about the USMCA agreement and changes to trade policy, please visit Livingston's dedicated USMCA webpage, where you're going to find really important resources, including Livingston's Certification of Origin form, FAQs, links to important government documents, and more details around the content that we presented in this session. We also have a full microsite experience that covers the core changes in the trade agreement and offers a variety of key materials, a video explainer, and a quiz. And we welcome you to browse these materials as well. Next slide, please. For more valuable information on customs and trade issues, you can subscribe to begin receiving updates directly to your inbox by typing in your browser www.livingston.com/subscribe. Next slide, please. It's been a pleasure to offer today's session and hope that you found the information useful. We invite you to contact our panelists with your questions and feedback. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you, Jesse, Tammy, and Carolyn for highlighting very important regulatory and process updates for us. And on behalf of Livingston, we'd like to thank Costco for this opportunity. Thank you all for your participation, and bye for now.
Thank you all.